We're here with James Reinhart, the CEO of ThreadUp. James, thanks for joining us.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
I want to talk about your kind of early days. Tell me, like, where you're from, where'd you grow up, what was that like?
Yeah, I grew up in New Jersey. Went to public school. I had a paper route. Played soccer. Was always kind of working something. I was always I ended up becoming a bartender. In Red Bank actually.
Nice, perfect.
So that was my child. Played soccer, golf.
What business lessons did you learn as a bartender?
You always got to make the customer happy, right? And so, and I think also in business, I really learned to, how the value of small talk and like using it as a way to get to know people. Because so much of what we do in business is build new connections, build new relationships, and the ability to do that in a context of, lots of people sitting in your restaurant or sitting in your bar actually turns out to be a powerful lesson in business to get to know people and make them feel comfortable.
When you're doing the paper route, you're doing, obviously sports, bartending, yard work. Do you have in your mind, do you have any idea what you wanted to, eventually do for a living when you were younger?
I think I went through a phase where I wanted to be an architect, and then I came from a family of lawyers and thought I should be a lawyer. In college, I thought I should be a banker for a little while. But I think ultimately I was always trying to find something where like I could make a big impact. So everything that I was thinking about as I got older was where can I make a difference in the world? And so then I really wanted to be a teacher. So my first job out of college was teaching. So I taught history and English.
Wow, whereabouts?
In California, so moved out there, 8th grade and 10th grade, history and English. And so that was great, and I felt like I was making an impact, but I felt like my impact was just in my classroom.
Gotcha.
And so then I had aspirations to do other stuff.
So how'd you go from the classroom to running a publicly traded fashion marketplace, e-commerce, you name it? I want to hear that jump.
Yeah, so I worked in education for about 5 years, and then I wanted to do policy work. So I wanted to go to the White House and be a White House fellow working in education. So I ended up going to school. So I went to the Kennedy School of Government and Harvard Business School, really with the idea that I would do education policy. And when I got there, a couple of things happened. One is I sort of fell out of love with the education work, and I fell in love with like the intersection of like business and private-public partnerships. And then the true story is I didn't have any money at the time because I was a teacher before business school, and I had a mountain of debt. And I went to sell my own clothes at our local consignment store, and they wouldn't take them. And that was 2008.
Did you have bad taste? What was going on?
Apparently, this was like a J. Crew sweater, a Brooks Brothers coat. Like it had real value, but that particular consignment store said, we just do luxury. And I thought there's like a broken market here. And that began what has become the ThreadUp journey.
Wow, what was like? I always love this first step in that journey. What was going from, hey, this is broken, to I'm actually gonna get something moving here?
Yeah, the big first step was I took that and then I went and asked a bunch of friends what % of the clothes in their closet do they wear. And not a single person that I talked to, man, woman, professors, nobody ever said more than half. And then I said, well, what are you gonna do with all that stuff? And they said, well, eventually I'll just give it away.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, that's a lot of value being given away. And I was in business school at the time, and so I was obsessed with this notion of market failures, and it was a mispriced asset. That's how I described it to people. I'm like, it's a mispriced asset. If it's worth zero, I'm like, it's actually not worth zero. It's probably worth $10.
Was it always online first? Did you try like your own little consignment store to kind of understand the business, or how did that go?
It always was online. It started peer-to-peer,
Okay.
so it didn't, we weren't going to process or touch any of the inventory. And then it evolved clearly to, the best way to scale the business would be to become a little mini warehouse.
Wow.
And that's how we got started.
You went from an idea with your beta test your friends, now you're a publicly traded company.
Yeah.
What advice would you give yourself if you had a time machine, and what you've done, where you're sitting now, when you first had this idea about ThreadUp? Like, what would you give me a couple, words of wisdom that you would give yourself, or any entrepreneur or anyone looking to, start something or switch things up?
I always reflect on just how long it takes to build something of real value, and I think sometimes as entrepreneurs you get impatient, and you like want it all to happen right away. And I think I probably would have told myself to be more patient back in the day and really like follow the customer. And so now I often tell people when they pitch me their business idea, and I say, do you want to work on this for the next 10 years? Because that's how long it's going to take for it to turn into anything worthwhile. And it helps people really think like, oh man, am I really that passionate about this? And so I think that's a great filter for young people as they think about being entrepreneurs. And then the other thing is, look, you have to do really hard things. And I don't say that because being an entrepreneur is hard, but you have to solve hard problems. If you're solving easy problems, you're not going to be able to build barriers to entry and sustain advantages. So I always tell people, and I would tell myself, like, work on the hardest things. because that's actually where you can create a lot of value.